peoples. Today I'm going to be doing a ranking of all four Monsterverse movies. The Monsterverse as a whole, I think, is like, I really only gave a positive score to the number one on this list. The lowest score I gave to a movie on here is a 4.3, and the highest I gave to a movie in here is an 8.3. So that's your gauge, and the other two are basically right in the middle. And yeah, my number four is gonna make a lot of you really mad and probably gonna make a lot of dislikes show up. But number four is Godzilla versus Kong. And I genuinely think this is a bad movie. And I am totally behind if they want to make a fun movie you don't have to think about. And that's what I expected. And I was expecting, I'm gonna have fun with this. It's gonna be a fun movie. I'm not gonna have to think about it too much. But I still think it had a lot of problems, even though, they kept characters minimal. They did this, they did this, they did that. And you're just supposed to be entertained by the action. The problem with this movie is two problems specifically. One, it was extremely predictable, especially within that third act, because, the movie does setups, and by the time you get to that third act, I knew exactly where it was going. And it's one setup in particular I don't want to spoil. But, well, you know what? If you're watching this video, you've seen Godzilla vs. Kong. Spoilers for Godzilla vs. Kong. The second you see I saw Mechagodzilla, I knew how it was going to happen. I knew instantly, the second he showed up on that screen. So I was just kind of like, okay. Just kind of like watching the monster action, just waiting for Mechagodzilla to show up for Kong and Godzilla to beat him up at the end. I was waiting for like a save Martha moment, which happened, and then Mechagodzilla showed up, and the second he showed up, I knew that Kong was gonna be the one to defeat him because they didn't. I know versus movies are like this. They try to make the audience debate who won, and personally, from what I saw, Godzilla won fair and square, but they're like, it was obvious, like the second Kong was like, once the second Godzilla messed up Kong, I was like, okay, Mechagodzilla's gonna show up, he's gonna mess up Kong pretty bad, and then, Godzilla pretty bad, and then Kong's gonna come in and save the day and kill Mechagodzilla, so there really isn't a clear winner here. And so, I was instantly underwhelmed by the third act, because I knew where it was going. And when I was like, okay, at least I know where this third act is going, so maybe I can, just have fun, watch the monster action. But while the monster action was cool and it wasn't bad, it lost what I like about Godzilla, about all the other monster movies, and to the point where it felt like a Transformers movie to me. And the action itself was okay, and I did chuckle a couple points, like, yeah, that's pretty cool. But what I love about the first Godzilla and the second Godzilla is in Kong as well, they always capture how big exactly these monsters are. You're like, wow, that monster is pretty big. Like, especially in the first Godzilla, you're like, that's a big lizard. And here, you really don't get that. There are shots that try it, but it's never as effective as it is in the other movies. And it's not just the action part, that's the problem. Yes, the humans are very minimal, which is fine. But the fact that they have humans, way too many of them, and if you're a Team Godzilla fan, you're left with the crappy humans, because you could tell that this was a Kong movie over a Godzilla movie, which was, kind of like the same thing with Batman vs. Superman. It was a Batman movie over a Superman movie. But with this movie, you're stuck with characters, and Millie Bobby Brown's storyline just had me snoring. It really did. She did not need to be in the movie. What they ended up doing at the end of the day, kind of disabling Mechagodzilla for a second, that's their whole entire point for the movie. Easily, the other storyline with the humans could have did exactly what they did. They at least because their characters weren't bad, it's just, and it had a good ratio between monsters and humans. It had the perfect ratio between the two. But the fact when we got to the humans part, it was jumping all over, where I'm like, how about we just stick with one group? It felt very avoidable to me. And that's where I have that problem. And besides, I was very disappointed with the movie. I was underwhelmed the whole time. I knew where it was going. Maybe it's because this was the only one I didn't see in theaters, and I watched it at home. But I do over the last year. I my room's basically a movie theater. I have a video coming on that soon. Basically, my whole entire theater setup. I want to do a video on that. But yeah, I have probably the most immersive home theater that. Oh, besides the size of my TV, I have the most immersive it gets when it comes to home theater. So I don't think it was that. I was genuinely, the movie just wasn't for me. Coming in at number 3 is Godzilla King of the Monsters. This movie, speaking of characters, while the characters themselves are okay, sometimes, especially Millie Bobby Brown's mom, her motivations make zero sense. While the characters themselves are like, okay, these ones are fine. They're probably one of, like, they're about on par with the characters in Kong, I think. But their writing was just so plot point to plot point. Let's go from one action set piece to another. And I didn't find any of the characters particularly dislikable. It's just they felt very plot driven. But yet Godzilla King of the Monsters did get that action scale that I love. You felt in this movie as well. You felt how big these monsters were. You didn't feel like that Transformers vibe that I got out of Godzilla vs. Kong. You feel like you're watching a Godzilla movie. You feel like you're watching a monster movie. You feel like you're watching a 800-foot lizard fight a bunch of other 900 feet monsters. And that's what I appreciate out of a movie like this. Coming in at number 2 is Kong Skull Island. Kong Skull Island, even though the action might be the weakest, it definitely has about tied for second when it comes to humans. And like Godzilla vs. Kong, the humans aren't bad. It's just there's way too many of them. Way too many of them. And it just really frustrates me how the movie, they like, okay, we want less character. When the poor reception for Godzilla came out, they're like, we want less characters and more monsters. And they took that as, okay, more characters, less screen time, more monsters. That doesn't make any sense to me. Have the same amount of characters, less screen time. But, whatever. But, yeah, Kong Skull Island, the Kong visually looks great. There are tons of money shots and fantastic looking shots in Kong, and the action is fun to watch. Like the skull crawlers are probably like one of the weaker like antagonists when it comes to these movies, but it's just fun to watch. You know, Kong beat up those things, and I really like the how they dive into Skull Island and exactly what that's all about, because you're always exploring. It's a new area. It's really fun to get to know that area. And like I said, the characters themselves are fine. It's just you never got to learn about any of them, which I at least like to know. It's really about preference when it comes to these movies. Are they made for the people like me that like movies, or are they made for the fans of these monster movies? I'm sure the fans of these monster movies really like all but Godzilla. But I prefer, a little bit more of a balance between a movie and a monster movie. I want a little bit more of that. And sadly, like number 4, Godzilla vs. Kong, did not get that out of me. And neither really did Godzilla King of the Monsters. But this movie in my number 1 very much feels like at least tries to be a movie, at least. But yeah, Kong is still not my favorite. It still isn't one I rewatch that much. And even though it is number 2, it's still not a movie I could say I particularly like. So yeah, coming in at number 1 is what's going to make you dislike this video, and that is Godzilla. I really like this movie. I really do, because it's the movie that makes you feel like you're watching a Godzilla movie the most. It doesn't feel like I'm watching a monster movie, because they just so perfectly captured the scale and how big he is. And yes, the movie does tease us a couple times. I remember, I'm not, just because it's number 1 doesn't mean I think it's a fantastic movie. I think Godzilla's good. Like, it's not perfect. I ended up giving the movie an 8.3, which is a good score. Well, that's not a hesitant good. 8.3 is a good leaning great. And yes, the movie does tease you sometimes, and it doesn't build up to anything, and it can be a little disappointment. Like, I think the airport fight should have been in the movie. It shouldn't have been, you know, cut to TV screens and then you see it, because that was pretty frustrating in my most recent watch. But once you get to that third act, it's my favorite third act out of all three of these monster movies, because it felt like the whole movie's been building to this. Yes, you get Godzilla. And that's what I feel like the movie delivers on all that. The humans here aren't particularly good, but they're good enough for what the movie is. And it's the best humans out of all of these movies. And I don't know if it's because, you know, I recognize Elizabeth Olsen or what's his the Quicksilver guy. I recognize them, so maybe that's the only attachment I have. Well, not really, because I recognize all the other actors in the other movies, so it's really valid for me to say. But yeah, the characters in this movie, I was most attached to. The plot itself, I was more attached to. Yes, it could be a little military heavy, and that was a little bit of a problem for me, but it captures a realistic take on a Godzilla movie. It's realistic, it's beautifully shot. There is tons of money shots here. Captured the scale of it, made me feel like I was watching Godzilla the most, and I really do like this movie. It's the best out of all four, in my opinion, and I know a lot of you probably extremely disagree with me right now, so comment down below what you guys think, and comment down below your ranking. It's only 4 movies, so it's pretty easy to rank. So, yeah, go ahead. I know, I just hope I don't get, you know, crap for this. I probably will, but, yeah, it's my opinion. Don't attack me on it, and I swear to God, the second I get, well, what were you expecting out of a Godzilla versus Kong movie? I know that comment's coming. But anyways, yeah, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.